really was confused, and I really was expecting more of myself than I was able to give. Kind of that dopamine hit, and it's a want, really. It's just a want. But that's a real reason why I can't work out. If who she was with her first kid is not who she is with her eighth, does it feel like I have the space and the energy to pour into these other things, or am I literally pouring all my energy into this space? Welcome to the Slowish Parenting Podcast. I'm your host, Alexis. I'm a mama to 2 little girls and a parenting coach. It's become my mission to help families rekindle connection, to rebuild relationships on a foundation of safety and trust, and to give parents the tools they need to show up with empathy and compassion, no matter what situation may arise. If you are craving slowness, peace, and joy in your parenting, you've come to the right place. Alrighty, let's get into today's episode. So today we are diving deep into the expectations that we put on ourselves as moms. I'm going to assume that there are going to be a lot of new moms, maybe pregnant mamas who are already feeling the weight of the expectations that we put on ourselves. And I think that it's important to know that I think almost every single mom has expectations that are unrealistic. And I wish what I'm going to tell you was given to me before getting pregnant with my first daughter. I had so many expectations on myself, how I would show up, the mother that I would be, and the more that I was not meeting those things, or even honestly the expectations around my child, which I won't really get into today, but they were causing me so much stress and anxiety and frustration in my own life because I really thought that there was something wrong with me. It seemed like, and I think so many of us have been here, where we see our friends, our family, these social media influencers, these people who really seem to have it all together. And we're like, what is wrong with my kid? What is wrong with me? Why can't I do this? Why can't I motivate myself to be this parent that I expected to be? And I think that it's normal for us to go into motherhood with this expectation of how we will show up and how we will mother. But there is a bit of reality that hits that's like, okay, this is not going to actually serve me. And that is what I hope this episode does. I hope that it helps for you to realize the expectations around motherhood, what you can expect. And if you haven't hit that phase of motherhood yet, knowing that, okay, this is normal. This is what I'm going through. Me feeling this, me, reacting in this way is normal, but giving you the tools on, okay, how do I evaluate, is this expectation really serving me? Is it helping me become the best mom that I know that I can be, that I was created to be? So with that being said, I really struggled with expectations. I think I mentioned this earlier with my first daughter. I was so confused as to why I couldn't connect with her, why I just felt so out of touch. Like for those of you who don't know, I have a sister that is 13 years younger than me. And so I really I didn't raise her, but I was a very motherly, affectionate sister. And I really took care of her. I loved that. And I just couldn't understand why I wasn't able to do that for my own kids. And I think part of it was that intuition. I was really lacking motherly intuition because so much of that had been stripped from me when my daughter was sent to the NICU. If you want to learn more about motherly intuition, I have a whole podcast episode I did. I will link that below, or if you're watching on YouTube, I'll link it right here or here. I forget which side. But I think that when this intuition was stripped from me, I really was confused. And I really was expecting more of myself than I was able to give. And I found that, I was so wrapped up in my expectations that when I wasn't meeting them, I was feeling like, is this what I was called to do? Was I meant to be a mom? I remember thinking Lord, why am I not enjoying this? Why am I not feeling fulfilled? What is wrong with me? And truly there was nothing wrong with me. It was that I had expected myself to be superwoman. And I also didn't take into consideration my children and myself and our family and my husband. And would this expectation that I had created, is that serving us? Is that helping us as a family? And 9 times out of 10, the answer was no, it was not serving us. And so if you are listening to this video and you are feeling unfulfilled in motherhood and you're thinking, oh my gosh, it could be because I'm expecting too much from myself, I want you to know that that is probably true. You're like, oh, I wasn't expecting you to say that. But no, I mean, it's probably true. You probably are having a bit too high of an expectation for yourself, for your kids, for your spouse. And today I want to just help you figure out, what are these expectations? Why do I have these expectations? And what can I do to stop them from happening? And really, that's where we're going to hone in today, is at how can I stop myself from expecting way too much and really being realistic, so that way you can show up at your fullest potential. That's always my goal here. But to start with, I think that these expectations really start with what was modeled to us. We expect ourselves, whether it was a good modeling or a bad modeling, we either expect ourselves to be just like our mother, or we expect ourselves to be the complete opposite of our mother. And so whatever that expectation is, we really start to see ourselves through that lens. And so when we start acting in ways that don't align with the mother that we believe we need to be, whether that is just like the way your mother mothered or the way you think that she shouldn't have mothered, whatever that is, it's like when you start to walk outside those lines, you start to just feel, I don't know, depressed and icky inside, and like, oh, like I'm such a terrible mom. And when we live in that mom guilt, we can't move forward. We can't make ourselves better. And so I think that when we examine the expectation, first noticing it, like noticing the expectation can even be hard. Like I would recommend writing down anytime you start feeling triggered around something. Let's start looking into what's triggering you. Is it every time your child hits? Is it every time the dishes aren't done? Is it every time, like, what is the trigger? And then is there a belief around this trigger? You know, if there are dishes in the sink, is there a belief around this expectation that the dishes must be clean by 10 a.m. because that's the way you're a good mom? Because, you know, like what is it? What is it about that? What belief is stuck in this expectation? And from there, let's start figuring out how to evaluate that expectation. Let's notice it. Let's say, is this really serving me? And let's dive into it. So that's kind of the process that I go through when I start noticing something that's really triggering me. That's usually when I'm like, okay, there's some kind of expectation here. And what is that expectation? And then I go through this process of the expectation. And then, you know, what am I believing about myself or the world, or what am I thinking is the reality here? And maybe you need to go to a friend and say, hey, do you experience this too? You know, for me, it was kids sleeping through the night. My pediatrician told me my daughter should be sleeping through the night by 6 months old. My daughter was not sleeping through the night by 6 months old. And it wasn't until I had my second daughter and she was 6 months old, not sleeping through the night, that I'm like, oh, this is weird. I mean, I know I've had 2 NICU babies, but this is weird. And in a Facebook group, I found almost every mom was talking about their almost 2-year-old wasn't even fully sleeping through the night, and that it was developmentally normal. And I was like, what? You know, so these expectations can be put on us without even realizing it. You know, maybe it is in good intention, right? The pediatrician with good intention wanted me to get more sleep so I could show up and be a better mom. But by telling me that she should have been sleeping by 6 months actually just made the issue worse. So you can kind of see how expectations can cause us to really wrestle with ourselves, and honestly can make things worse if we're not careful. So let's get into, I have 4 different things. I'm keep on my notes here because I could easily get off topic. But 4 things that I want us to do when thinking about expectations. So the first thing is mentally prepare for those hard moments and seasons. And so this doesn't just have to be the baby years, which I think we tend to think those are really hard, or the toddler years. They're really, really hard. And I'm currently in the toddler year and then the preschool years, right? And so with those two, they're so different. And they're both hard in their own way, but there's a little micro. I'm always about the micro moments. We go back to these little moments that feel really hard. And much to my surprise, they're actually usually not as hard as I've made them out to be, especially when I've done my research. But I'm going to use a really simple example to help guide you guys into, figuring out expectations. So let's say that you are pregnant right now and you are all in preparing for birth, right? Which I think is awesome, by the way. Totally did this with my first and it went so beautifully. But with that being said, I never prepared for postpartum. And I was a mess postpartum. I mean, I didn't do anything for myself. I didn't know I needed to do anything for myself. Nobody told me. But I had this expectation that my daughter and I were going to nurse perfectly. She was going to sleep through the night. We were going to snuggle and connect. And it was just going to be seamless. We were going to have this beautiful golden hour and all of it. It was just going to be this blissful experience. And let me tell you, it was far from that. And I'm not saying that if you're pregnant to scare you, but rather to let you know that you want to prepare for these things. You want to prepare for postpartum. That means yes, do all the freezer meals. Do them. Even if you have a meal train coming, do them so that way you have some things after the meal train's gone. Expect to be bleeding for a long time. Have several different kinds of pads, okay? Do it. You will be absolutely grateful that you have different, different sizes and you can go pick them out yourself versus sending your husband to the store, which grateful that my husband would go and do that for me. But it was it just got to be to the point where I wasn't taking care of myself. And not to mention, I never in a million years expected to be a NICU mom. And I'm not saying to go that far, not to necessarily expect to have a C-section or to go to the NICU. I think that can be a bit extreme, but just allowing yourself to be prepared for something like that mentally, kind of acknowledging, these things do happen. You can have a totally healthy pregnancy and your baby can still go to the NICU. It happens. And, I think thinking through, okay, and what would that look like for me? I don't know. I guess taking this expectation of this blissful, beautiful birth and remembering that it may not go 100% that way, and that's okay. Be prepared for all the things. I love Bridget Tyler's course. I did a whole entire review, which I'll link below. That's on my Bless Our Littles blog, but I will link that below. I love how she prepares you for every part of birth, whether you're doing a hospital birth or a birth center birth or a home birth. She helps you to really know different positions, different things to try, when the hiccups come up. And I think those are the moments we need to be prepared for, because then when they do come up, when my midwife mentioned Pitocin, I was like, oh, you want to do Pitocin? Okay, yeah, I know that I can wait another 2 hours before I have to get Pitocin, so I'd like to do that. And she's like, oh, okay, cool. And I felt empowered. I felt like I knew what I needed and what I wanted, which goes back to that intuition. I believe that, these two things are kind of hand in hand. When we can lower our expectations, we can really start leaning into what we're supposed to do, what that intuition is really telling us. So going back, if I were to go back to my first pregnancy, I would be preparing for postpartum, preparing for all the little things that are going to come up. Give myself this nest to just fall into and allow myself to know that this time is not going to be 100% blissful, but there are going to be blissful moments. And the craziest part is you're probably going to notice more of the blissful moments than you are the really hard ones, because that there's going to be hard moments. That your baby's probably not going to sleep for the first 3 months. Probably going to happen. And if they don't, wow, what a gift, right? If they sleep through the night 3 times a week, what a gift. So I think lowering those expectations is really going to help you in these really hard seasons. Even things like potty training, going at it hey, we're going to take a month, we're going to potty train. I don't expect you to do it in this 3-day weekend, which was something I expected of my oldest daughter. And she didn't do it. And the funniest thing is a month later, she just was like, yeah, I'm done with diapers. I'm like, cool, awesome, great. It was that simple. And I mean, literally it was that simple. And so I think that sometimes we just we put so much expectation, not only on ourselves, but then it in result gets put onto our children. Okay. Number 2, let's evaluate our needs versus our wants. So this is kind of like our to-do list. So let's look at our to-do list and let's notice, okay, is me saying that I need to get the dishes done, is this like something I want to have done, or is this something that needs to get done? And this could vary based on the time of the day even. Like if it's 10 a.m. and you know that lunch is coming and you don't have any clean dishes, then that is definitely a need. That is not a want. But if it's nap time and all you need for dinner are the plates are all ready, the, spoons, forks, everything's all ready for dinner, but you have some dishes left over for lunch, that's probably more of a want to get that done than a need. Doesn't mean that it won't feel good to get it done, but is there something that you could be doing in that moment that would actually fuel you more? And that for me was like, whoa, okay, yeah, I can see that this thing would feel really good, and that would give me kind of that dopamine hit, and it's a want, really. It's just a want. But this need, evaluating, is this a need, really helped me to put in perspective my expectation. And for me, it's around the dishes. Was the dishes actually causing me an issue right now? No, yes, they're piled up in the sink. No, I really don't want to do them later, but you know what? Right now, I need some time to myself, so I'm going to read a book because I know that's going to really fuel me. And this is really a need right now, is to fuel my body while my kids are sleeping. So I hope that makes sense. Let's move on to the next one. So let's talk about can't versus won't. So this kind of goes in line with what I was saying before, and I kind of hesitated to do both of these, but this is another way I think about something. And I'm going to use the example of working out. So in those first 6 months postpartum, my guess is you can't work out. Not that you don't want to work out, it's that you can't work out. And I used to convince myself that I didn't want to work out because I was tired. Okay, that's a real reason why I can't work out. If my body is already under stress, why am I going to stress it out more? I'm breastfeeding. I'm literally getting like 3 hours of sleep every night. I'm exhausted. Why am I expecting myself to now work out on top of all that? My body won't even respond well to it, and it's not going to fuel me or help me move past this any faster. So if we go back to that example, it's not that I can't work out in this, or it's not that I won't work out in this moment. It's that I can't work out. I physically can't because I'm tired. So if I go back to this example with working out, let's say my daughter is now a year old and I get a 10-minute window. I mean, she's fully sleeping through the night. I'm fully nourished. There's not a lot of stress going on in my life right now. This is no longer I can't work out. It's that I won't work out. And that's when we need to say, okay, this expectation that I need to work out right now, which probably is a need versus a want, this is going to serve me. This is going to help me for the rest of my day. It's going to give me energy. It's also going to help me lose the excess baby fat. It's going to, give me energy. Did I say energy already? I think I did. But it's basically, it's going to help me. You guys get what I'm saying. It's going to help me in the end. And that is what's important here. So I hope you guys understand the difference between those two. I tried my best to explain them, but they really are different, but I can see how they could get muddy. So if you have questions, you can comment them below, or you can message me if you need a little bit more of an explanation. So the last thing, which I've been saying over and over again, but I feel like it deserves its own spot, is this expectation serving me? And I really want you to think about it. Is the expectation of having a perfectly tidy home serving you? Is it giving you connection with your children? Now here's the big if, let's say for me, it's like dog hair on the ground. If I didn't get to vacuum this morning, and this morning it was, I just can't get to this right now. I'm really busy. But then in the afternoon, I have this window, and it's honestly like my expectation that the floors are clean is important because now it's getting all over the kids, like their clothes, and it's getting all over the toys. And now it's become an actual like problem. It is serving me to have this expectation to keep the floors clean. And at this point, it's not just a want, and it's not that I can't, but it's that I need to. I need to get these floors done for the health and the safety of my home. And so I think really evaluating that. Another thing for me that is an expectation that is a really healthy expectation is my Bible, getting into time with the Lord. Now here's where the expectation can become too much. I need to spend an hour of prayer time, prayer journaling every single day. Okay, that expectation is not actually serving me. That's just causing me stress. Rather saying, I just need to spend a couple minutes reading a verse even. One verse could take me 4 seconds in my Bible. I just need to get into my Bible once a day. That is serving you. That is an expectation that is serving you. So as you can see kind of the difference here between is this serving me and not, really start to evaluate, is this something that is serving me? We also have we do a really good job of saying, this is serving me when it may not be. So maybe bring this to your spouse. If you are interested in coaching, that's something I can help you with as well. I can help you decipher, okay, is this expectation that I've created, is it serving me? Is it serving my family? Is it causing more stress for not only me, but for my kids and my husband, my friends? Like, is this a problem? And sometimes having just that outside, like I like to think of it like a snow globe. I'm looking into your world and I'm getting to see everything that's going on. And that can be really helpful when you're trying to move past these expectations so you can open up and you can find freedom. You can bring peace in your home. That's again, my thing here is I want to create these peaceful, calm homes. And we can't do that when our expectations are up here. I love Lisa on the Farmhouse on Boone. I don't know if you guys watch her on YouTube, but something that she said in multiple podcast episodes is like, who she was with her first kid is not who she is with her eighth. It's not just like one day she had 8 kids. It was like they came over time and she, evolved and adjusted. And I think that that's exactly what was intended for motherhood. We kind of roll with the punches, so to speak. And we can't do that when our expectations are up here. And I keep going back to this tidy house, analogy, but is friends coming over to a perfectly clean house really serving you? Is that going to make for better connection? Is that, there's a difference here between saying, I want my house to feel, picked up so that way, or like I said, the dog hair is off the floor because, I don't want the dog hair to get all over, everybody else. But, it is important that that happens, but having the house like perfectly dusted is not going to make our conversations any better. They're not going to change how much we're able to connect with these friends that are coming over. Ultimately, if we don't have the space and the capacity to be able to be there and be present, then it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what we do. And for me, the biggest shift here was like, is it going to serve me to have this whole entire house perfectly clean? This expectation that my house has to be clean in order for people to come over. And if the answer is no, which it was no, what would serve me? What expectation would serve me? And for me, it was like making sure that the house is like picked up, like decluttered. And if you listen to my most recent podcast episode about minimalism and how that relates to parenting, I feel like when it comes to a tidy home, that's key. Like, it's not like I'm ensuring that everything is perfectly dusted and the floors don't have a speck of dirt on them. It's rather like, does my home feel calm? Does it feel like I have the space and the energy to pour into these other things? Or am I literally pouring all my energy into this space? Okay, I'm getting off topic. I'm talking about a tidy home, but I feel like so many of my clients struggle with this thing of maintaining the home, which maybe is something I need to do an episode on. But anyway, I hope that this episode helps you to figure out your expectations. It helps you to understand what they are, how to change them, and what you can be doing in the future to kind of evaluate and say, hey, this expectation is not serving me. and figure out what that looks like for you and for your family. Remember, your expectations are going to be different than mine. Maybe you have a child that is allergic to dog hair and you own a dog and you don't want to get rid of the dog and all you have to do is vacuum 3 times a day. That is now an expectation that is realistic, where for me, doing it once a day is realistic. So remember, evaluate, keep in mind what makes sense for you and your family. It's not linear. It's not going to look the same from you to your best friend, to your mom, and even to your spouse. It may look a little bit different, and that is okay. That is what we were made to do. We're all uniquely made, perfectly made with everything we've got going on, the good and the bad. We need all of it to be able to show up, to be able to have this energy of calm, to be able to be peaceful as a parent. So I hope that this episode was helpful for you guys. If you have any questions, as always, please comment them below. You can also message me at alexis@slowishparenting.com and I will answer all of your questions. And yeah, so anyway, I hope this was helpful. Thank you guys so much for listening, and I will see you in the next episode.